on here, and then.
I didn't even think it was on.
Yes, I have
So
two
we
on
have,
mine.
so we do have a quorum, that was my big thing, I was looking around the room, trying to count to make sure that we had it live, so we didn't have that problem.
Can you all hear me when, Alina, can you all hear me online? Can someone online tell me if you can hear me or not? Thank you.
Page for the supplemental agenda, am I missing it? It's fine if they're not, just.
It's right at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Yes, it's on the good order.
we did it. It was on the last meeting, good of order, right? That's where we talked about the dates. Yeah.
No, not on there.
We'll have to do a good of order again. We went over the last meeting and you gave the dates.
I thought this was you
That's fine,
on
yes, I just
On
know what
this.
dates, yes.
Okay. I didn't, I
Okay,
was.
do you have this?
I don't, but, yeah, thank you, you're great, thank you. I think you wore them out at, Olive They looked like they were gonna make Saturday.
Oh, yeah? We had them pop.
Yeah.
There was a group of us, so.
Probably.
Okay.
So we need to get this approved today.
Okay, we're all ready to, we're recording and ready when you are.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order, the Financial Advisory Committee at 4:04 PM on December 15th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make the motion to approve the minutes.
And I'll second.
Okay, wait a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can't see anybody online, what are there, two online?
Oh, sorry, that was my bad. Alina and John, you all approve the minutes?
Yes, we do, yes.
Thank you.
They make it 9-0, so carries. Next up is public comment. No public comment. Since our board member, Ms. Gittens, is not here, last month we discussed having the summer meetings. We had put in for dates May 18th, June 15th, July 20th, and August 17th. Do we have a motion to approve those summer meetings?
Move to approve the summer meeting schedule.
Any discussion? Just so everybody knows, it's not a requirement you attend during the summer, but this committee has always done it so that we can try to accomplish extra. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, I gotta see a thumbs up from John. Lena, do you approve?
Alina, do you approve?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Aye, nothing. Motion passes for the summer meetings. For those that weren't with us last summer, we were shut down effectively from February on. No matter what I did, I could not get us a meeting. That's why I'm trying to get it approved at this time. And I know that sounds silly, but it was the only option this committee has. Okay, moving forward, Ms. Gittens will go at the end.
Can I make one comment on the planning? One of the questions they didn't get to ask last time, just real quick, was how much does the district pay for street infrastructure on a new school typically? And I couldn't get it from anybody, so I had to do a public records request, and basically it's $1 million. So like the traffic light at Bonita Springs High School, the roundabout at Gateway High School, we end up paying almost $1 million per school when we build one. That's a heck of a number.
Kind of painful.
Yeah, well,
Especially since it's really not our job, but yeah.
Correct, right, and so this is one of those conversations, if we get to the point where somebody's talking to the county commissioners on impact fees, proportion to share and everything else, that's the kind of data you go in with. Hey, do you understand each new school is costing us $1 million in traffic infrastructure that we need some help? All right, thanks.
Let's hope that we can get our board members to push that forward in this coming year.
Do we need to make a motion to do that?
When Ms. Gittens gets here and she speaks, and she asks for questions, that
Go
is
for it.
the right time to do it.
Okay,
That is the right time to do that.
okay,
And she is one person that can do that, and she's a very vocal person.
sure.
So she's probably the right person to do that.
May I also say that any help from outside would be greatly appreciated, because sometimes even a board member doesn't have a lot of, yes.
Business, yeah, business acumen either, right?
So sometimes if you hear, if they keep hearing it from other sources, it helps, so.
Well, 3 of them have now heard it from me specifically, so.
You got a few more to go.
Yeah, I understand. I'm also working for the election, so, next year, so maybe some, just,
Maybe we'll get a miracle in some cases.
well, you know, it's kind of funny though too, because, you know, speaking off the record for a second, Mr. Parsons that's running against Gwen, he posted on Facebook, we don't need to have cent sales tax. And it's like, do you know we have $500 million in debt?
I was the one that
Anytime.
proposed it. I was the person
I
that
understand.
proposed it.
Anybody that, yeah, well, how do you think we're gonna get rid of this debt? But anyway, sorry.
They don't look at that. May or may not have been the right move. My opinion it was, and others, I know it wasn't.
I believe in it, but it's just, that was a little, so I texted him and said, hey, can we talk? And I wasn't for him or against him, just, hey, do you understand what's going on in the school funding? And the answer, I think, was,
I wish more of the people that have something to say would show up at like this particular meeting, because public input,
Sure.
give a few minutes to each person. We can't give a lot.
right,
We're not that we can't do much, but at least it sometimes does give direction or another opinion that we don't always see here. So we welcome that. If you know anyone that has something to say, they can have a few minutes to speak.
Just out of curiosity, is anybody else, going on with your question, has anybody else ever paid for traffic signals? So what's the
In
precedent?
Cape Coral, there was the city at one point, I wanna say it was the CRA towards the bottom of the Cape. I had saw something up about it. I mean, given this was over 5 years ago, but I know there was something that happened in Cape Coral, and it could have been for one of the charter schools, and might not have been for one of the school district schools. That I had saw some, they do own the charter schools. So it could have been that way too, but I know the city has. I think we should be lobbying the county commissioners with the people that have a problem with that.
Right.
But that's a whole.
understand, but it's just a data point. So when they start having discussion, hey, we need your help. This
I
is,
think they've had that discussion. The problem is getting, believe it or not, enough support behind it or pressure on the commissioners, from what I've heard.
It's the commissioners.
It's be good to understand the precedent as well.
Yes.
If they had paid for it previously, what changed, why was it changed?
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, next up, maintenance department, Mr. Thompson.
My name is Jimmy Thompson. I've been with the district for 12 years in the maintenance department. I'm part of the administrative team that work on the projects, the day-to-day activity. I primarily focus in on internal work with work orders, getting work order completion, and day-to-day correspondence with the schools.
you want me to repeat my question since we're recording now?
So
I
let
asked
me
him.
let me get through this, and then
Okay.
if I get through this, and we'll go there. So what I did was I put together a high level, just quick details of projects. All these projects are external projects that are being completed by contractors, majority of which are local to the area in our tax base. So these are completed projects that have been recently completed, classroom lighting upgrades. When I say lighting upgrades, we're taking these fluorescent bulbs, and typically we're doing internal light upgrades, and we're upgrading them to LEDs, softer lighting, much easier on on our pocketbook is for the cost per kilowatt continues to go up. Parking lot upgrades, so schools are safer. Again, when we do these upgrades, we're upgrading, and you'll see in a later slide where we're upgrading to a much more substantial base. So we're not just going in and putting heads on there. We're pulling out some of the errors that were made in the past that we learned from, through storms, which you will see in some slides. And those lighting upgrades are LED as well. Those were done at Dunbar High Gateway. There's a substantial amount of gutter repairs being made throughout the district and replacements currently going on right now. And there are several for years to come, as a matter of fact. We're using majority of those are being done with continuing contracts with our through maintenance, which is a cost savings because we don't have to utilize a CM service, which is an additional 10 to 15% on the job. So when we have a maintenance-based bid where we can do these internal bids, we have that cost savings where we have a pricing structure that's already agreed upon. It doesn't fluctuate based on the market. So again, common sense would tell us to use that approach when we do it, and we do. So fire alarm upgrades are happening in Transportation North. We're seal coating and restripe on the Alba School. This has been completed. The tennis court upgrades are at Mariner and Diplomat. These upgrades consist of grinding off the old material that's there, resurfacing it, repainting it, restriping it, and making our old stuff as good as new.
Do you have to get LDOs for those?
What do you mean LDO?
Limited development order when you change the lights?
No, sir, we don't, because we're typically using continuing contracts with those.
No, with the municipality that you're in.
When you mean LDO, are you talking about some sort of rebate through FP&L?
No, I'm talking about get
Spell it out.
approval from either Estero, Bonita Springs, Lee County, Cape Coral, whatever.
Yeah, I could get back with you on that, but no, I've never heard of the
Okay.
LDO. I never have.
Well, they're pushing on HOA, CDDs, and every other business. I'm glad
Yeah.
that you don't have to do it because
No.
it's a go grab.
No,
But-
sir, we don't. I think the only one that we might go down there in your village with Estero would be maybe was the Gateway High. Bonita High down there. So.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Next slide. So when I mentioned the parking lot upgrades, you can see on the left, the Gateway Elementary, those lights are set on concrete footers, maybe a foot or two down, probably 2.5 feet actually. And with a high wind event or something backs into them, something hits them, they do start to lean, and it's just aesthetically, it doesn't look right. And it's not structurally sound. In the event of a storm, we have lost lights, and we did lose lights during Irma. So when we're doing these parking lot upgrades, the majority of them are getting bedded with those concrete poles you'll see on the right, and they're getting set down 6 to 8 feet down, as close to the top cap as we can get, and they're concreted down to, to protect our asset and make sure we're getting value for the taxpayers and their dollars. Next slide. Here's a ongoing projects that we have going on in maintenance right now. Majority of these are tax-based, ISOC projects where they're being funded through their tax dollars. That have sales tax. Those are 74 active projects. It shows you the gutter projects. You can log onto the website and you can see where those projects are taking place at. As I mentioned, there's a substantial amount of schools that are currently ongoing with gutters, and there's several after that. We have roofing projects, which you'll see another slide that are currently happening at Lehigh High. We're replacing all the flat roof at Lehigh High, where previously we did all of the pitch roof had been replaced with metal. Now we're going back and doing the flat roof there, as well as Three Oaks Middle. Window projects, when you see window projects, we're doing upgrades where we're going to more of a storm window, impact resistant, to protect our asset. Walkway cover to protect the children, so we can extend bus ramps. Population keeps growing here, so the kids, we don't want them standing around getting soaking wet during a rain event, and making sure they're protected. Interior lighting, we touched on exterior lighting. Paving projects, we touched on. Emergency generators, there is a slide in there. You will see the emergency generators where we're putting them in and reinstalling ones that were already existing. All the projects we have are replacing what's existing. We're not upgrading the EPG capabilities of the schools. We're making sure that what's there is working. There's 2 of them on the list that are completely down. In the event that we had an outage, we would lose the food, would spoil in the walk-in cooler and walk-in freezer, which would prevent possibly the kids getting fed the day after, or us having to logistically move all that stuff around. And you guys know with labor shortages, the way things are, it's hard to get things done. So by having these generators in place, we can protect that food and that cost savings and keep the kids fed. Fire alarms, we're upgrading fire alarm grids. Electrical switch gears, there's a slide on that, and I'll explain to you why we're doing that. That's actually an interesting slide. Door upgrades, it goes onto the window upgrades where we're upgrading these doors for the corridors, for the pathways like at Lehigh High and Cape High, to continue to protect our asset. so that in these high wind events, we're not having doors blown open like you saw in the paper with Lehigh High, where the windows and doors blew open during a storm and caused a substantial amount of damage. Our intercom systems are becoming obsolete, and we're losing the ability to get the controllers for them. We have a decent amount of controllers that we've hoarded over the years because we've had to do that, but they're extremely antiquated, so we're having to upgrade some systems. Cabinet upgrades, we have a lot of cabinet upgrades coming in the near future, but they're so heavy on labor. We're able to do about 3 to 4 a year without a heavy impact on the kids. We're here for the kids and for the teachers, so naturally we cannot go in there, rip the cabinets out of 5 or 6 schools and not have the manpower or the bandwidth to get those cabinets back in. So about 3, possibly 4 a year is the max we can do with cabinets. And we have to stay on track or we simply won't be able to get that done in the time period that we've got allotted to get it done. Elevator modernizations, you'll see a slide on that as well. And I'll go over what we're doing and why we're doing it. Window blinds as well as restrooms. Next slide.
Do we have a generator at every school?
No, not at every school. Most schools do have generators. A lot of the schools that have generators are for limited emergency lighting, walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers, but the shelter sites typically have 1 kVA or 2 kVA units that will power the entire school for the event of a shelter.
As we're building new ones, are we putting whole building or?
I'm not in charge of building schools. I can't. It's a collaborative effort with the county. And they decide with EOC where they want to locate those shelter schools at. And then it's a committee, they sit on and decide, hey, listen, this is gonna be a shelter school, this is the capacity of the shelter school, and this is why we're making that a shelter school. It's a joint venture between 3 groups, I believe. And the state, actually, the state's involved as well. Here's a sample of the gutter projects that we're moving forward with. I believe this was taken at Edgewood, where we did all the interior corridors. This school had gutters. The issue with the gutters were they were falling apart, leaves got in them, they rusted. The majority of the gutters we're going back with anodized aluminum to protect our asset. In the past, we've used galvanized and it's rusted out. These decisions were made way before I came to work here. But the majority of the gutter projects we're moving forward with are with anodized aluminum. You'll see in Lexington, being as close to the coast as it is and being 3 stories, our new standard for 3-story buildings is a 12-inch gutter. It's custom broke, it's custom made. And the facets that this industry standard has set forward that we said, hey, listen, this is what's we're gonna hang these gutters with, we don't believe was adequate enough. So we've had custom gussets and fasteners made to, again, to protect our asset and to continue moving forward with the right path. Hey, you know, we've been gifted this the ability to provide these projects because the half-cent sales tax. Let's make sure that these last. We want the gutters to stick on the last, and we wanted to shed the water away from the buildings. There's a list of the projects that are currently going on with gutters.
Can I ask a question on
Of
that?
course.
To me, it's interesting that the majority of them are in the west zone.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that have anything to do with the schools and the timing as to when they were built?
No, ma'am. It just depends on the list and the availability of the contractors that we have on site. Those are the first round that went out. There's a whole nother round of gutters that are going out, and they'll keep going out. We have a substantial list of gutter projects that are gonna take place, and some are in the east zone as well. I can get you that list if you'd like.
Okay, I wasn't asking for east.
No.
Everybody thinks when I open my mouth, nothing comes out but east, okay?
No, I know that's your area, so I wanna make sure.
But to his point, when they assign those work to the contractors, it kind of makes sense to do them in clusters so they can kind of knock out
Okay,
cluster
no, I
cities
was
at a
just
time.
saying that when
Yeah.
you look at the list,
Yep.
and you think that that
Yes,
is
ma'am.
it,
Yes, ma'am. No,
and
ma'am.
that it's only in the west zone, it's like, okay, well, what happened
It-
a few years ago back then with the gutters?
Now, and in the previous slide, we showed the amount of gutters we were doing,
Okay,
and we can share that with you, but, so you see the current, there's 8 projects that are going on with the gutters, those are the ones we mentioned, and there's several more that are in the queue.
okay,
So,
that's it, thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. So this is a picture of Trafalgar Middle, and this is the reason we're putting gutters there. The school did not have gutters prior to us putting them in. And the erosion that's taken place, we poured that slab, actually that slab was, let me rephrase it, that slab was poured prior to me coming to work here. But with the runoff, it's eroding, it's creating trip hazards for the kids, and it's just another place for mold and mildew to set in and create the possibility of a child or a staff member to get hurt. So once these projects are completed, that section will be roughed up, ground down, and resurfaced to prevent any slip and fall issues that could occur. Here's a list of the windows, blinds, elevators, intercoms, doors. It's just a kind of a snapshot of what we're currently working on. And you can see the window upgrades, it shows the locations, the roofing upgrades, and which I went over shows locations, the blind upgrade. And when it's a blind upgrade, it's a full blind replacement is what it is. And those blinds will be replaced. The elevator modernizations, it goes over the 5 that we're doing. Those schools aren't that old, but what's happening is, that industry's constantly evolving, and just like I mentioned on the intercom systems, a lot of our parts, our components are in that elevator becoming obsolete, so they're coming in, they're replacing that entire switchboard and keyboard to a more modern, type that's available. So that way we can continue with the same, cab that we have, the same piston, the same cylinders that we have, but with new components, so it's essentially a new system with the exception of the cylinders. The intercom upgrades, I mentioned to you while we're doing those, the reason that those systems are getting upgraded are because the items that control those intercom systems are becoming obsolete. We do have a decent amount of them stored, so these are the first 3 we're gonna do. There's gonna be a lot more in the near future. In the door upgrades, again, Lehigh High, we learned, we did a tremendous window project there where we replaced every window in that school along with that addition to harden it. During that hardening process, we realized the doors for the corridors need to be hardened as well, so that way we can prevent any damage to our capital asset in the event that we see a large storm, as well as keep, HVAC costs down by keeping the cooling and the heating inside the building. Okay, electrical switchgear upgrades. Here are the schools: FMIT, Cypress Lake High, North Fort Myers, Pine Island, and Estero. Some of these panels have reached their life expectancy, and what happens is when we negate to do the servicing on the switch panels, because we have to bring the panels down, these panels have to be brought down so they're de-energized, because the particulate matter builds across the lugs that conduct electricity. When that particulate matter builds up, what happens is when the conditions are right, humidity builds up in the cabinet, and it creates what it can create electricity across that particulate matter, which is the true definition of a flash arc. What happens at that point in time is that panel actually blows off the wall. And this happened to us at Mariner High. Luckily, we had the bandwidth and the wherewithal through our budget and financial group to rent a 1 kVA generator, which is what you see on a 53-foot trailer, and we backfed the building and kept refueling every 8 hours. We learned from our mistakes. So we put together a preventative maintenance program where our team services the panels that do not need to be replaced, where we go and bring the school down for 3 to 5 days. We retorque all the lugs, we address it, and we exercise each and every breaker. We make sure everything in that panel is working the way that it should. So when we extend the life of that panel, we notice what's obsolete, what's not obsolete, so we can get on these lists. But these are some of the schools that need to be replaced because they are obsolete. And eventually this building will be one of them, because we blew a main breaker a few years ago and we were able to reload it. We have an extra one. I think it's like one of the only ones in the country. In the event we have another issue, but this is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. You will see this more and more as we move forward. The only issue is our inability to shut power down to a school for 5 days. So when is a good time to do that? How do you shut down this power to a school for 5 days when our only business is to keep kids and students in school, students and staff in school? It's a very, very hard thing to do, and schools they're very reluctant to allow us to do it. But we've had to be pretty strong on it, just based off of what we learned at Mariner. By hey, we can go another year. So this year we got several done, and we're working on these as well. And it's a pretty interesting project if you've never seen it. And I think now the panels that we're having built are about 6 months to a year out because of the lead times. Here's some more flooring generator cabinets, bathrooms, chillers. These are all the site locations of where we have ongoing projects right now. These are not upcoming projects, these are ongoing projects that we have going on right now. The generators that we mentioned, North Fort Myers High is a generator that's completely down, and Diplomat as well is completely down. The others, I believe, are running okay, but a lot of the parts are obsolete. As things have gotten older, a lot of the manufacturers have been on a call for certain parts over every couple of years. They become obsolete, and once we can't get parts from the source, then we start looking for ways to upgrade them. So we put it out for bid, and we get bids for them. Majority of those are 25 to 30 kW generators. Yes, sir.
And you choose the contractors for these are.
For what portion are we talking about?
Well, let's just use the generators for a second. How
Yes,
do you choose the contractors?
We have, for generators, we put together a bid. It's a maintenance-based bid, and it has, I think, 3 to 4 contractors on there. They have agreed upon pricing, set pricing plus markup. So they all have, it was an ITM, which is an intent to negotiate. So they have set pricings, and we put them out, and, we get pricing from them. If we have the availability to get pricing from three, we'll go with the lowest and best price option.
Yeah, it was more, I guess, the front end is how do you choose the board that you go to get the bid from? I came out of an industry where we had lots of maintenance, and choosing the right potential vendors is a big deal.
I worked for Ring Power prior to coming here. I worked for Ring Power for 7 years. I worked for Pantropic Power for 12 years prior to coming to Ring Power. The majority of my time at Ring Power, actually at Pantropic Power, was in electronic power generation. So I spent a pretty decent amount of time speccing them. That's why we put the bid. We originally did not have a bid for generators, so we had a sole source with Cummins Southeastern, because they supply a majority of our larger generators. But, you know, to be fair to the taxpayers, we put a bid out, and the companies that were willing to participate submitted bid proposals, and we have a rotation, internal rotation with maintenance, that we rotate those vendors and get pricing from those vendors accordingly.
I just happened to pick on that one, I didn't.
But that's for all of our bids. That's
Yeah,
for
I
all of our
just,
bids.
yeah, I had experience at Lexington where one of the contractors was spectacularly incapable.
And that was the issue that we had.
Yeah.
So the issue that we had was, you know.
Not for generator, it happened to be a different.
Yeah, with generators, during Irma, that's what we noticed, that we didn't have the bandwidth that we needed. You know, we're constantly evolving, we're learning as we move forward, and, we didn't have the right bandwidth, to be able to handle some of the issues that would pop up, EPG related and other things. So, procurement has a process. If we have a contractor that's not fulfilling their obligation to the school district, or if we're not getting what we feel is our money's worth, we file the appropriate paperwork, and it's noted in their contract. So upon renewal, it's discussed with them and it's corrected, or it's put out for rebid. These are our cabinet upgrades, and again, I mentioned,
Wait a minute, question.
I didn't see it, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
No, no.
Do you have, like, on these different maintenance jobs, do you have like a matrix or something that helps you prioritize which school goes first? In other words, you know, whose sidewalks are eroding the worst, or, you know, how do you decide the order?
Safety violations, so SRF obviously will come first. So our safety officials go when they write up our work orders, based on their site visits, and those will automatically get priority. We work off of our work order system, so as the work orders come in, every single trades group receive it comes in as a service request. That service request is vetted with that supervisor, periodically throughout the day, and that work order is evaluated, and it's put into the level of I guess, when it needs to be done. So for example, air conditioning, power, water would obviously come first regardless of the location. We would jump on that. Yesterday we had a power outage at the new Lehigh Acres Middle School. So that was instantly all hands on deck, everyone went there.
And don't some of them also come through the CIP process?
Yes,
The capital improvement process?
a lot of them come through the capital improvement process, and we rank those as a group. Larger scale projects, I was talking about work orders as a whole. The larger scale projects, they're all evaluated and ranked and agreed and voted on through the capital process, the CIP.
And just as a side note, one of the parents said she picked up her son from Lehigh Acres Middle yesterday, and he said, "Mom, somebody didn't pay the electric bill." He doesn't know their name.
Yeah.
Somebody.
It was, that power outage was actually due to what I believe was a cat that got across the transformer. And I actually have a really interesting picture.
Yeah,
I'm sure a public record on this one.
Oh my
But it's, it was, they covered a couple legs of the power, and eventually. Yeah, it was done. The skeleton was up there, that's it.
So I just want to add the other thing that we're doing, and you all can jump in for, maybe you can help with that, but, we have a process now where as they go out and they start reviewing the schools will get graded on where they are with things to help us.
Facility assessments.
Yeah, facility assessment, thank you, which helps us then, to know the levels and, you know, who needs it first. And
Yes, that's actually a very good point, Kelly. So they started, the planning group started what was called the facility assessment. So we went through.
Planning does that?
Planning, no, we actually facilitated because their lack of labor. We utilize our zone managers, and we set parameters, and there's a checklist that they go through, and they rank furniture, they rank baseboards, they rank, molding. And we went through and did our initial assessment with the facility conditions, And now we're coming back and doing the high-level things that were noticed. And those items that are on there will go back to the next phase to become a project for them to be replaced, so on and so forth.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You have students on site every single day. We used to have parents on site every single day. At some schools, I guess we do again, some schools.
I'm not sure how they're doing that now.
I'm not either. But wouldn't it be advantageous to the district to have an anonymous hotline or something for students to report, hey, if something's broken and not being fixed, let them report it to the district. I mean, they could all think, oh, I'm reporting, I found a smoking gun, whatever, who cares? But at least things are getting reported that may or may not be. The parent that shows up. I mean, all it would take is someone using a printer and printing up a bunch of boards that stuck around the school, notice something wrong that needs to be fixed.
A QR code,
Send us
yeah.
a message. Please send us a message. Use your phone. Your QR, the kids will eat it.
Absolutely.
It's just an idea,
No,
so
no,
that
it's
things are reported.
it's a good idea. I spent time as a parent in the district. My wife was a teacher for 11 years. I visited schools, and I can understand where you come from and relate with that. To the school's defense, they do a really good job at noticing what's damaged in the school and reporting it. I have some numbers for you we can go over so you guys can get an understanding of the magnitude of how big of an operation we're talking
Well, I
about.
think even better would be the kind of the responsibilities of reporting from the zone manager, the builder,
Absolutely.
the principal, kind of all have their checklist of responsibilities in terms of the maintenance of the school. The building supervisor who's responsible for that school on an everyday basis, they have when they're supposed to do the checks on the HVAC system and check the vents and do things like that. And the principal, who's over everything there, right? They have their things that, hey, once a year you need to go around with the building supervisor and do these things and things like that. And then also there's a zone manager over each zone. They hit the school 2 or 3 times a year and kind of do walkthroughs and identify things. So there's kind of several different levels of kind of reporting the needs, and then just on an ongoing basis, any teacher, any custodian kind of has that ability to reach out to whoever their designated person in the school and report different things. So, there's several layers of kind of alerting when things need to be done.
So there's a schedule, is what you're saying, a schedule?
A schedule for,
For the assessments, facility assessments?
for assessments, correct. They have some sort of kind of annual, way they go around to hit each school.
The facility assessments that were done annually now, that was done last year. This year, we're doing the follow-up on the facility assessments, on the high-level things that were noted. Now we're saying, so, okay, listen, every facility's gonna have something going on with it that needs to be touched up. And at this point in time, is it a want, is it a need? Does it absolutely have to happen? So now they're getting ranked. Once we identify the schools that need these projects done, they're gonna go back into the secondary funnel. And we're saying, okay, now we're gonna re-rank these schools on the items that were found. Not all the items, just the items that were found that need to be done. And as a group, we're going to make a decision, okay, we wanna move forward on this, we wanna move forward on that one. And like Mr. Roth said, every building supervisor in the district has a checklist of things he's supposed to do. And every school has a building supervisor as well as a head custodian. And it goes from their daily checklist, their weekly, their monthlies, includes fuel tanks for generators, their hallways, their classrooms, their notes, and each and every one of those requests get turned into a service request, gets funneled into that process that I was just talking about with the kids, where they get funneled in, and each supervisor identify them, and myself and Barbara, the administrative team, we monitor on a daily basis. I go into each and every supervisor's queue, hey, listen, okay, he's got this, hey, based on my knowledge of the field, because I am an expert in the field, hey, listen, Sean, please address this, hey, Mr. Howard, please address this. This one needs to be a little bit more high level based on my knowledge of that facility. In the zone manager input, each zone manager has roughly 33 schools to look at, and they make those rounds relatively fast. It is, it's a lot. However, but if you look at it broad spectrum, if that one supervisor had 96 schools to deal with and make those rounds, it would be harder. So that zone manager, so the hierarchy is, we have our supervisors that handle the work orders and their day-to-day staff, making sure the employees are getting as much done as they can and making sure they have the help that they need to get their job done. And then it goes to the zone manager, making sure that information is getting disseminated to the principals. Hey, listen, you have someone come into your school. This is what they're gonna address. Were you satisfied with the outcome of that work order? And then they'll report back to us, hey, Barbara, hey, Jimmy, this is what's missing. This is what this school absolutely needs. They weren't able to repair it in such a fashion. We'll say, okay, we'll weigh out our options. Is it cost effective to repair it? Is it more cost effective for the district to replace it? What's the life expectancy? What's the life cycle on that unit? So on and so forth. So we make educated decisions.
Do you prioritize You mentioned you prioritize, do you prioritize based on the budget and
Yes, ma'am, I know typically what our annual day-to-day budget is in each every funding line. So we'll address everything that needs to get addressed right on. There won't be any, as we move forward, if there is room in the budget, hey, listen, we might be, typically in, Florida, I use air conditioning is my background. So, Florida, you'll have a 10-year life expectancy on an air-cooled air conditioning in Florida. The coils are gonna start deteriorating after 10 years, components are starting to have problems. Hey, listen, this unit's running perfectly fine, but during our preventative maintenance program, which we do internally, hey, I'm gonna pull that record and I'm gonna see, hey, listen, the coils they're in 85% condition. The rated amp draws, 20 amps, they're still pulling 16 amps. We can get another year out of this unit. However, this other unit over here that's at Varsity, our veterans, that coil's, they're 9 years old, but the coil's deteriorated past 60 to 50%, and that amp draws exceeding 10% of the nominal face value. This one needs to be replaced before I replace this other unit that is older, but it's not, it's like expected life, it's not even starting to deteriorate. So those educated decisions we make at this level.
And we also, so they have a set budget, if there's something that comes up throughout the year, we actually meet with the whole capital team, it's, all of operations and budget, and we meet every 2 weeks, and we have discussions on those things, what has come up, what do we need to prioritize, what do we need to move, so that we can make sure that we keep everything going.
So in the budget, there were 47 sites workers. Is that yours?
No, so we don't have 47 sites workers.
All right, there were building supervisors, there was 87, and we got 100 some schools,
Yes.
so are we?
So how it works is depending on the school size location, I don't have those numbers for you because those are school-based positions.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing on those building supervisors are school-based positions.
So are those
owned
site
by
workers you're referencing?
Owned by the principals in the school. Now, we do training for them, we provide,
But that's not what you're talking about. When you said you had people, I thought you said
Yes,
building supervisors.
Those are the
Oh,
building
okay,
supervisors. but
so
they're not-
indirectly they work for you.
Correct, indirect.
It's kind of a dotted line.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a very vaguely dotted line.
Right.
So the
Okay.
building supervisors work for the principal, and they work for the principal, and typically, in a high school, the larger schools will have like a middle school or a high school typically have the sites workers. I don't have that exact plan,
Okay.
but those are school-based staff.
And then it shows 60 crafts or trade workers. So that's your air conditioning, electricians, plumbers,
Yeah,
masons.
we have a total, in maintenance, we have a total of 158 employees as a total.
That would be your utility workers.
That's from
your
utility
crafts
workers, sites workers that we have. I think we have maybe under 10 utility workers, we have under 10 site workers in maintenance. We have
Okay.
24 employees, which would be crafts, building crafts, carpenters, window glazers.
All right, are they centrally assigned or are they?
They all, with 158.75 employees, which currently we have 144 of that 158 employees in the district, they all come to 3308 Canal Street. And they work for the supervisors that we're talking about that they get the work orders in the queue and they get dispatched accordingly.
All right, so do you have some kind of metrics on things like, how long does it take to fix an air conditioner?
I'm gonna give you some numbers. We have 158 employees theoretically.
Sure.
We have 110 sites. We
Okay.
have 1.5 employees per school.
Well, no, what I'm trying to say is metrics on, if I'm at Estero High School and I turn in that the air conditioning's off,
Mhm.
what's your metric to get it
It
fixed?
depends on the school. So, for example, if it's chiller school, it's gonna go to our chill water department. They have roughly seven chill water technicians. We'll send a technician down there immediately to identify the problem. If it's a condenser fan motor, if it's a pump that's seized, and we can change the pump, which we have in stock, if it's a condenser fan motor, if it's these light parts that we can get in and out and get it swapped out, we obviously utilize the labor that we
And
have
if
on
you
staff.
can't, then you gotta go
We
out.
use one of our contractors, which would be
Contractors.
Train, Page Mechanical, Winco, and we get them down there and get it, we basically evaluate, especially when it comes to air conditioning and power, what is our fastest means to restore service to that school? And we will always get one of our technicians or several of our technicians there. For example, Lehigh Acres Middle yesterday, we had 2 electricians on site. Once the power was restored by the power company, they went through that entire school, cut the chillers back on.
Sure.
They were there to identify, they're the ones that got the pictures. But we evaluate each and every work orders that come in to see as to whether or not we're doing it in-house or it's getting contracted out. We are light on staff based on the amount of facilities we have.
Well, the reason I ask is I was teaching junior G-men at Estero High School, the rest of them know this, and the air conditioning up on the second floor in the health building was out for 2 days.
Okay.
And this was August. that was, the kids were passing out. So, is there some kind of metric on that? But
Typically, we have contracts for portable heating and cooling. So if the school, I very rarely does a school ever go without air conditioning for 2 days. If I were to receive a phone call from that principal or that building supervisor, that administrator, or anybody in this room were to receive a phone call, hey, listen, air's been out for 2 days, I promise you.
Well, that's why I think they like the QR code.
Yeah.
I could have stopped and said, hey, is anybody doing anything
Yeah,
about
I
this?
was unaware, I am aware.
This was a couple years ago,
Yes,
so,
yes, sir.
okay. And do you have an engineer on staff?
No.
Okay, because there's an engineer in the budget. So
What type of engineer are you talking about? Are we talking civil, mechanical?
I can't tell, it just says engineer in the budget.
I believe that's in the facilities department.
So just
In
curious,
the construction department? Okay.
Would it be possible for us to look into putting something at the schools? I mean, I'm just talking.
Absolutely, but that's not at my level. That would not be at this level, that would be, I'm sure they're open for discussion.
I see your perspective 100%.
Yeah, no,
I don't
absolutely.
disagree at all.
Yes, sir.
But I'm looking at it as, you have a bunch of kids that go into, just say the boys' bathroom, the toilet's been cracked for 3 months. They just didn't happen to catch it, other than the people that are actually using the toilet.
100%, and my kids go to school as well, and they come and tell me the same thing, and we address it, and, so that is obviously the case. If we're not being notified there's an issue,
Yeah.
and it's not the school's fault, they have a lot going on, and, trying to make sure they're getting everything done in this crazy climate we're dealing with right now. They have their hands full, so we try to do anything we can, so if they put that forward, absolutely.
Who would we have to talk to about doing that, or is that something that's,
I've
it falls
got it
out of
on
the
my list.
financial advisory committee's realm, because it doesn't have to do with
Yeah,
finances, although it
But-
really does.
But I have it on my list, and I was going to say, I actually like the idea for the purpose of, especially a brand new school, to have the kids take ownership
Absolutely.
and to, be aware of their surroundings and that this is their school. And, it may
They get home.
surface one in every 6 months, or it may surface a few in the beginning, but at least it includes the students as well. So I have it listed to take back to.
Yeah, and the only thing I add to that would be, knowing kids, right? And, I'm just envisioning my maintenance workers running out, frankly, for things. So I'm thinking of a process where that gets notified within their school, right? So the
Definitely.
principal
And they have to vet it before they
Right,
call
and
you guys to
then,
come out
yes.
with the good
I
guns.
like that.
It's
I
another.
can
You
imagine
can
some of the
just
messages
imagine.
coming through there.
How many? Oh, I got 5 of them to come out today.
It's like, how's all the toilets in there?
Absolutely. And you'll see, some schools you never hear from. Some schools, they
Right.
just have, they'll have staff there and they'll take it upon themselves to do everything, and maybe it's the staff had changed, and they're like, oh my gosh, how did all these things get missed or whatever? And, anything like that is a great idea, and we'll be receptive to anything, we'll work with anyone. And I think Ms. Gittens would probably be the avenue that.
I have it down.
Can you please get
And-
back to us on that?
Oh, I
Because
definitely
I
will.
think that could feasibly save money
Yes.
for the system long term, rather than waiting. Like my daughter used to come home all the time, North High. The AC's not working, it's a sweatbox, Dad, I'm not going. I used to walk into the office, I need to go home. Why? The AC's not working, I don't feel good today.
Right,
At least, that some things are getting reported.
right.
It's probably, something
And,
big.
and,
but-
and it would take like levels of escalation.
Exactly, but at least it's
And-
being done, and things you don't see, like you and I may not see, someone
Right.
else may just see, that's all.
And then in a new building, you never know when something may crack
Look at
and
these
you're
old
not
buildings,
aware of
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely.
And some kid sees it or,
Well, even in new buildings, what we'll see is, irregularities and air conditionings.
Settling,
And so what we do is, if once we're notified there's an issue, we'll put together a data logging program where we'll say, listen, we're gonna hit 20% of this facility and set these devices where they measure, temperature, relative humidity, and dew point. And, and I can take that information, now I'm making a database decision on what needs to happen. I'm not just saying, listen, I'm hot in this room, I have the data to approve it, or I have the data to say, hey, everything's okay in this room. Maybe we need to change the blinds in here to slow down a little bit of the latent heat coming in. But those are little things that we do, and buy-in from the school, if it's filtered the way that Mr. Ross is talking about, I think it wouldn't be a bad thing. But, it needs to be proposed.
definitely.
so before you go on, I know just curious, so how are you guys doing with staffing? Is it a pain point for you?
It really is, staffing, it's been extremely hard right now, the same as everyone else has seen in the country. We're typically 158.75 employees, we share an employee. But we're at 144 right now, we actually had one resign yesterday. You know, when the market, when you know, Target's paying so much money an hour, and, you know, when they're younger, and that's when you wanna see these people come into these entry-level positions, so they can, if they wanna pick up a trade, they can come and grow with us. You know, when we're paying, you know, less than what you would see on the outside market. And the outside market has the ability to do that because, you know, they're retail, they're making money. But, you know, Target is paying better than we're paying. You know, they might not have the benefits we have, but when you know that they're 18, 19, 20 years old or 22 years old, they might not be thinking about that. We are suffering like the rest of the country, and it's hurting us pretty hard. But we're managing to keep up at this point in time.
Do you recruit from your technical schools?
That's what I was just.
Yes, ma'am, we've had an intern program, where we used in the past, where the summer air conditioning groups have come, where we haven't done it in a few years. Things have been kind of crazy, but we have pulled, we saw some of the employees that came from the technical school. Our HVAC supervisor actually was the teacher at the technical school. He brought a few of his students over, and they're still here today. But, yes, to answer your question, it has suffered the trades, tremendously. You know, you'll get someone that's doing a fantastic job, and, you know, they're gonna get paid, you know, X amount of dollars more an hour, and I can't fault them for doing that. It does hurt, and we're even seeing it on the contracted side. You know, we've experienced where we can't, we've never heard the word no. You know, if you were a vendor that did work for the school district, you're gonna wait for the phone call. You know, we've received the phone calls, we cannot fulfill your request. And that's the first time that's ever happened in my 12 years that I've been here. And it's, you have to then start getting very creative on how you're going to fulfill that need that this school has with the staff that you have and the inability to contract some of that out. We've seen some of that in plumbing recently, just because the demand is so large on the outside and they have so many jobs going on. You know, we have a structured price that might have been established 4 or 5 years ago prior to the huge inflation that we're currently seeing. You know, do they wanna work for us for a reduced labor rate when they're making on the outside? We've had very few instances where it's been an issue. We've been able to work through it with the vendors to get our needs fulfilled and through a particular timeline. And everyone, they typically always make us a priority. The majority of the people that do work for the school district have students in the school district. And they're part of that. So it's, but we are seeing it, and I just pray that it doesn't get worse than what we're seeing now.
And the other part, answer to your question, which kind of gives me a little angst, is that a lot of our technical programs, we have partnerships with businesses, and yes, we want those partnerships, but that means that if they're partnering and they're providing certain things, they get first dibs on our students. So we need to some way look at that process. How do we get our name in there as well?
Expanding the programs, perhaps, so there's a larger population of students to pull from.
Well, and now I am gonna say east, we need a technical center in the east zone, it's on record, we need a technical center. Most of the working force that you would draw from is in the east zone. They have to travel
It's too far.
20 miles to go, and 38% of the enrollment is coming from there, so.
Well, when we have the discussion on benefits, you know, that's, or, you know, whatever, that's one of the things, how do you attract and how do you retain? And
That's why one of the reasons why I
Correct.
keep saying benefits, and that's why I said I want the superintendent here, because we keep saying we have trouble. This has
Right.
been going on since 2014 or 2015.
Well,
But we have the same problem.
Right.
They can't retain because a lot of people have to leave because of the benefits or the pay, and a lot of it still can be dealt with through the benefits.
Well, and I looked at the board docs, I finally got into them, and it showed those that resigned, that quit, that left, were fired, whatever, and it was like 60, 80 people a month. You know, you're talking, and we weren't hiring that, that's why we're hiring 500 teachers, so something's kinda wrong in my mind.
We're
If we
not
had-
keeping up with the economic piece of it.
Well, I'm not even sure it's economic, but it's a piece
Well-
of, you're right, it's,
Well, that's a
it's,
major piece of
correct.
it. If you can go and work over here and make $20 an hour, and we're opening up all kinds of, you know, Amazon and this
Sure.
and that, and it's closer to home, and it's got all the
Right.
benefits.
But anyway, absolutely, it's a big piece of it, but there are a couple other pieces. One last question, I truly will shut up. How much input do you have to your, about $125 million budget?
Our budget in maintenance is not 125 million.
Well, the operation of the plant's 103 million, and the maintenance of the plant is 19.5.
That's all of the districts, so that's schools, maintenance, it's everywhere. It pulls it by the function code, that's the way we have to report to the state. An operation of plant would pull in all your custodial staff and.
All right, so the custodians don't work for you.
So I'll give you a theoretical. So a portion of our budget is strictly allocated day to day. That
Okay.
means the work orders that I spoke on, the emergencies, the unforeseen failures, that we reserve a portion of that budget, for our day to day. And the larger portion of that budget is already, pre-allocated and approved on projects that have been approved by the capital committee and have run through budget and finance and said, okay, we're earmarking these dollars, which is a substantial amount of our budget, to go towards these projects, and we follow up and follow through to make sure those are completed in a timely fashion. So when we start running in April and May for our budget putting in, we have to say, hey, listen, this has been completed, this hasn't been completed, but the money's been earmarked, and this is when it's gonna start. So that way we.
So you're heavily involved, bottom line?
Oh, God, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I go to sleep thinking about numbers.
All right, it's not what Kelly gives you. If Kelly
No,
gives you a
no,
number
no.
you don't like, you have a big discussion.
No,
No, I'm not saying that, downward directed, I'm glad you guys,
No, Kelly's group, she has some rock stars that work for her that we deal with on a daily basis. Kudos to Melissa, she's one of them. Melissa she has ability to, hey, listen, Jimmy, I have a question on this, and this doesn't make sense. And it's vetted and it's QC, and we've canceled projects. Hey, this one doesn't make sense because something over here needs it more so than this project, and they'll change an attorney, but that justification is then entered into the budget. And then towards the end of the year, hey, listen, if we have a certain amount of dollars for our base budget hasn't been spent, that money gets pulled back, and they'll use that money in other areas throughout the district. But Ms. Gittens, something I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned about losing staff, the possibility of future staff members. What we've done in the district in maintenance is we've started a quasi apprenticeship program where we're allowing other workers at a lower level to work with our trades groups, to work with the AC guys, to work with the indoor air quality crew, to say, listen, if you're interested in this, we don't have the night program anymore at the technical colleges, but you can get that on-job training for us, so that way when the position comes up, you are a candidate for it and you're in the running for it. So we can promote from within and grow our group from within with the people that we currently have.
And that's what I was gonna say then, do you, and I probably won't say this
That's
right.
okay.
Okay, so you're giving them OJT experience. Do they have an opportunity to, what was it called before, if you work on a job and they pay for you?
An apprenticeship.
Tuition reimbursement. So do you, in other words, do you allow them to go to the technical college?
So my background is I came in and I was in management. I managed areas, regional stuff, or divisional stuff. And I came in with no trade knowledge. The district paid for me to go to the VOTEC. I started at the ground level and entered myself into a trade, which is air conditioning in the district. So the answer to your question is yes. They will put you, the only issue we have is we've lost some of those programs because of the people weren't registering for them. So there needs to be a certain amount of people that register for the night programs, because when the people are working on site with us during the day, they really need to go to school in the evening. That's when I did it. And what's when the majority of the people that are promoted within the maintenance facility, I can name 4 or 5 other counterparts of myself that did exactly what I did. They follow that same footprint. Now that they do not have that ability to go to those night VOTEC classes, that's why we're doing that OJT, so they can get that experience, they can get the knowledge from the elders that we have in the field. They're gonna be retiring, so that way they're not ineligible for promotion because they're not able to go to school for it. So we're trying to get them trained up, and we're in the infancy stages on it, but we have several employees that are during the off-peak seasons. Naturally we can't pull someone off a lawnmower during the middle of summer and the rainy season when we're limited in that area to begin with. But now that the grass has slowed down, it's not dormant, but it is slowed down. We're slowing down rain, and once it gets below 70 degrees, it goes dormant. We're bringing those workers in, we're getting them trained up in air conditioning and whatever field they want to, and they're saying, hey, listen, and it's happened, hey, this isn't for me, I would like to try this, so that they get back into the queue. And I have to give credit where credit's due. Barbara Cedeno is the one that came up with that, and she's developed that, she's worked, and she's kind of brought that fruit forward and the employees are appreciating it, and they'll have the option to possibly move up in the near future, so.
And one last question with that, so do, companies like Tri-County, if I'm working with you guys and you don't have a class of tech, but Tri-County does, can you assist me in paying the
Yes,
fees to go to Tri-County?
so we talked on actually that last week. So we're working on getting, the approval through the union, because the union will pay. Don't quote me on the union book, I know you're in it, so don't quote me on it. So they will pay a portion, they will refund a portion of that tuition to a SPOC employee to go get their associate's degree. So we're proposing to them, hey, listen, will you consider paying for a portion of the VOTEC or whatever trade school they wanna go to if the hours work and we don't offer this internally.
Sounds like a Tri-County or something.
Yeah,
partnership would be good.
and we're gonna have to come up with a solution to this problem that we have so we can grow from within.
All right, one last thing, I know I said that 3 times.
All right.
Before you do that,
In the aircraft business, the initial cost of the aircraft is a certain amount, but the supply and the logistics and the maintenance is the big driver.
Mhm.
So are you having meetings with the construction people to say, you know, we just built 3 new schools, and we're finding out the way you did the plumbing in that one is really being a pain in the butt for us in the maintenance side?
What we do is, prior to any school breaking ground, when the plans are developed, each and every one of our trades group, this is the gospel, each and every one of our trades group supervisor sits down and reviews the plans, makes his necessary recommendations, and has to sign off on it. So we say, hey, listen, this school, you pitch an air-cooled system, we're gonna see an ROI, 5 years sooner if we go with a water-cooled system, and here are the facts. We recently changed our flooring specifications, we're working on changing some of our wall, our recommendations, but it's based off of data. Hey, listen, this doesn't work because of this, and here's the raw data to prove it. But
Thanks.
we are heavily involved with construction on a daily basis, and planning, to make sure we're making the best decisions for the district and we don't have, the Gustavo effect where one person is the end all be all.
Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
believe Chelsea had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to go back to, the strategy and the analysis of planning out what projects are taking priority. Do you have separate funds, it sounds like, in the budget that are for emergent safety violations or things that are discovered throughout the year? And then obviously capital or planned maintenance. And then do we analyze how well we're sticking into those buckets and we're following that plan?
Oh, yes, ma'am. So we have several different areas of our budget. We have, our general funding, which is what pays student, teachers, so on and so forth. We have a very small pool of that. That includes, tree trimming, the general aesthetics of the school where school-based staff can handle that. Our safety of life, which is our, you mentioned safety, we have a separate funding line for safety. It is minimal. It's not a huge dollar value. But we have our day-to-day budget, our capital budget. If there's a safety violation, it gets priority. We're very good at vetting what comes in to make sure that what we're replacing is truly a need, not a want. And as I mentioned earlier, as we move forward and we progress into that budget cycle, what we do is we say, okay, listen, this isn't necessarily a want, but it's not necessarily an extreme need right now. However, we do have the bandwidth in our budget to complete it. We're in April, our cycle ends in June. Let's go ahead and replace it now because we have the money, and I know in the upcoming year in July, this widget is going to fail and it's going to take up a substantial amount of our day-to-day budget. So that's how we do have our base, multiple different line items, but that we do budget accordingly. We know there's no frivolous spending on things that don't need to occur. Maintenance is the maintenance of the items.
I guess I'm assuming this, but when you replace something, it's coming out of the capital line item, I'm assuming, because probably none of this, if it's big enough, so what is that, what's that marker? It can't be super high, I'm assuming. That says something is capitalized versus not capitalized, what's the dollar, is there a set dollar amount?
Well, there's capitalized, non-capitalized, which is, I think the state sets it like at $1,000 or $2,000.
Okay, so it's eligible to be capitalized if it's a single item over $1,000.
Yeah, and for the capital budget, it's mainly any of the maintaining of our building. We can do under the capital budget. The things we can't do from capital funding are things like site work. So we can't go out and, pull up sod and lay new sod. We can't do that kind of stuff with capital dollars, but any other part of maintaining our schools or our our buildings can come from capital dollars.
You spend 75 grand pulling out a water chiller and putting in a brand new one though, you're capitalizing the entire thing. The not the maintenance, but
Yeah, nuts and bolts.
nuts and bolts, but also the staff costs as well, to
That-
do that capital.
Absolutely,
Project.
absolutely, 100% of that.
Okay.
In 100%, and then also things that you mentioned, chillers, the things that we would value would be the kilowatt usage. In the next slide, you'll see one of the things we noticed and how substantial it is. So that is one of the chillers that recently being replaced. So on the bottom side, you said in dollars, the campus that we're replacing chillers, and I can tell you it's Island Coast. We realized that the kilowatt usage was 50% higher, actually 58% higher than any other school in the district. It's an air-cooled chiller. The coils are past their life expectancy. The head pressure on the unit is extremely high. It's running at max capacity. So we're putting some energy efficient units in there, and that whole entire project will be a capital project. And all employees, with the exception of our custodians, I believe, are capital funded.
And here's the question I get all the
Yes,
time.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, here's a chiller that we just got replaced. Are we using all capital? Are we using capital and tax, half cent tax? And what portion of that chiller is half cent tax? And here's what someone
That's a
asked me
Kelly question.
last week, they said, when you have a sign out there that says your tax dollars at work, in other districts, it has numbers. And you can say, this is your tax dollars, and in other words, if this costs, $1,000, I know it's not, but, or $1 million, let's say. What portion of that $1 million came out of our capital funds, and what portion came out of the tax?
So, right there, capital dollars, like sales tax are capital dollars, you can only
It all
use them
came
for
out of
capital funds, so it's all capital. Then you have your capital outlay millage, which is like when you're saying here in capital, that's what you're thinking of, and then there's sales tax, there's impact fees, there's, all these little pieces that go into it. So what we do is, we tell maintenance, when they turn their stuff in at during the budget time, don't worry about funding sources, tell me the need. What do we need, and we'll worry about funding sources. So that's the first thing, is they tell us the need. We figure out, we go through, and then when it's all done, we go, okay, this comes from sales tax, this comes from, so one of the reasons we do that is we have to look to make sure, is it something that's approved with sales tax dollars? So step number one, are we doing something that is approved? Because I don't wanna put something in there that's not approved. And so when we went to the voters, we said we're going to be doing maintenance of schools and things like that. So we do a lot of our maintenance stuff in the sales tax dollars. So, but we may do this chiller. This chiller may have cost us $12 million, something like that. So where is the funding when we're looking out? And it might not be in sales tax. That 12 million might be in capital outlay. So we just move it all to capital outlay. And we'll do multiple chillers a year. So it's not like, so this chiller at this school might be, we try not to split fund it. So I don't try to say 5 million of this is from sales tax, 5 million from capital, because then it becomes a nightmare when you're trying to account for things. So we try to keep them very separated.
And I get that, but in, we've had it 3 years now, so in another 8 years, or so, 7 years or so, because we were 1 year behind. So in another 7 or 8 years, actually then in 6 years, we will be going back to the public and saying, we would like to continue this. And what the public is saying, if they could see, okay, you wanna continue it, you were able to buy those because, you had the tax. I understand that it's all one pot when they say they need a chiller. You don't tell them it's this tax and that, whatever. But the public is, and I'm thinking in the future, God, I turned it off, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And the public is still saying what, and now I can't even find it.
Well, but
So the public is saying, this is what we did, show me what you did with it, and it's not okay with them for you to say, it was added to this bucket.
But I want to remind you, the sales tax, web page shows everything that we're doing at every school. And safety's kind of a blank thing, so we're not saying exactly what we're doing for safety and security. But on the webpage, it says at Littleton, we're doing this, at, Bayshore, we're doing this, at Lehigh, we're doing this.
It's just
It's very specific on the webpage of what we're doing with the sales tax
But
dollars.
It's the marketing piece of it.
Thank you.
To help support that. Can I ask the same kind of question, but just higher level, because it might get to your answer? In the simplest 30-second kind of answer, I haven't even looked at anything. I have no idea how much the total budget is for the year. How much is it? What's the total not budget, what's the total revenue for the,
For
total revenue?
all funding sources?
Everything.
Well, we're at 1 point,
Almost 2 billion.
yeah,
Almost 2 billion,
1.9.
okay. Out of that 2 billion, how much is coming from the sales tax?
A year?
Percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head.
No idea.
but,
So like 100 million, 200 million, 400 million?
Probably between 80 and 90 million. is sales.
So that's small. So you're talking about less than 5%
That's-
of yours. If you're at 2 billion and you're at less than.
He's got
yeah.
a book, he's doing that.
So
I didn't get
that-
my book today.
But then, like, maybe even like a stair step from there, okay, so this is 5% of our total overall revenues in here, but our total overall revenues towards maintenance, our total dollars around maintenance was, 200 million this year. So actually, and, what percent, you could stair step down to say, okay, and then if 50% of those dollars went towards these big capital projects, maybe that's an easier way to get there. Forget the accounting side, you gotta do the accounting side like you do it, just like you said, cause you lose your mind. Because I'm certain that you have a million different revenue sources. But anyway, that might be something to think about, to get to where you're, what you're
I also
trying
wanna
to
Just
go.
simplistically.
Yeah.
I also wanna point out something else, that without the sales tax dollars, we couldn't do a lot of the things that we're doing. Like, we
That's the
were
point,
in the state of everything falling apart, so we had to get where we could start maintaining. We could get back to we always had one of I wanna call it the pre thing, but it's the, where, we check things out beforehand, like they're back to doing now, and you fixed them before they broke instead of waiting till they broke. We could not do that because we were like
Thank you.
so far out. This is allowing us to get back to that and keeping up, replacing things at the same time. So
And-
really, that's what it's doing.
And see,
Great.
backing into
Like how
what
well are
you
you
just
executing
said,
the plan now?
you're saying the same thing, but we're saying it from the other end. You're saying, we're looking here, we don't have enough to do all we need to do. What is that not enough?
We will be on track.
Because easily, that not enough that you didn't have in order to fix all this stuff is what the sales tax is doing. And that's, you see what I'm saying?
But
I-
even the marketing,
I think
could you
it's
put
a
up on Facebook, hey, today we're installing a chiller at
Amazing.
Island Coast,
And we could
and it's
not
paid
have-
for by your tax dollars.
Yeah, and we're working on that. So Irma just did a presentation with the ISOC committee the other night. Irma is our communications person, and they're working on the marketing and the communicating for the sales tax. And so that's some of the stuff that they're working on.
Well, I wasn't even gonna split it between property tax and sales tax, I just said your tax dollars.
Yes, and that's what I think I was trying to say is, whether it's sales tax or property taxes, it's.
Yeah, see,
tax
the
dollars
maintenance
to
guys
work.
don't know, they just
Yeah.
know they get the money to do it or they don't.
Yes.
You know, that's the bottom line,
We facilitate part.
yeah.
I understand, but
Yeah, but
Gwen's
the
point,
sales tax
it's
has
gonna
to
be on a
on-
ballot,
That's the difference.
Yes.
and
You know,
I
your,
totally
agree.
your tax
the group better
dollars-
market it, or
Yes,
It's
your
gonna be
tax
defeated at
dollars
the
as a
ballot.
whole is one thing,
Yeah.
Yes.
but what we're going to vote for is something totally different. And if we can't show along the time that we've had it, this is how it helped us, this is how it helped us.
property tax is a little more
Property
Well,
tax, you gotta
mainstream
do it,
in
you know?
respect to.
It's gonna be there, you gotta do it. You can't decide yes or no on property tax, you're gonna pay it.
Yes,
So-
I understand what you're saying, and I totally agree.
And coming from the perspective, for me, of, at one point in my career, having run a $6.5 billion road fund program in Illinois, the most corrupt state in the country,
Don't
that
talk
everybody
about,
wanted
don't
to
talk
hand
about
out.
my
But
items.
you're talking about, 40-cent state tax on gasoline, and you have to lead with that. What were we spending this 40 cents on? Because it was up like every election cycle. So anyway.
Thank you.
track.
Okay.
So I know we're
Yeah,
talking about
next slide. Yeah, next slide. So I believe we're getting close to the end, so this is allowing us to do upgrades such as Cypress Lake High. That's original, bathrooms are OG to that school, they're original to that school. So we've done some upgrades, we might have touched on some dividers, so on and so forth. But imagine, you know, the kid's parents going to the school in the same bathroom when they go to the same school. You know, it's,
Their names are.
yeah. I can't, I don't put my head around that right now, because it's gonna be an old.
Look for my name on the third.
And, it's allowing us to do this. It's allowing the kids to get in there and not have to worry about these old fixtures and faucets and doodads that just absolutely do not work. But these are the types of projects we're doing. These are high-level projects, and I'll answer any question you have, but to give you an idea what we're looking at and what we do in our maintenance facility, I put some numbers together for you. So we have 158 employees. Total under air, the district has 12,600,000 square feet under air. We have 96,000 kids. We're the 9th largest district in the state, 33rd in the nation. We do as much as we can with as little as we can when it comes to employees. When it comes to backing and we need a project that needs to happen, nothing that needs to happen that doesn't not get done, we'll reach out to finance. If it's not in the budget, if an emergency comes forward, like the failure at Mariner that was not budgeted, either we will absorb what we can in the budget and push a project from this year to the following year if we can, if we have the time to. But if we don't, we'll plead our case to Kelly's group. And if it's important, which we would not be going to them if it wasn't important, they will hear us out, and 9 times out of 10, they will make sure we have what we need to take care of this district.
And if it's not important, they will let us know.
I promise you on my children.
Important to whom?
Yeah, I promise you, they will knock it down if it is not important. There is no ifs, ands, or buts, and regardless of how good you can sell your presentation, if it does not need to be done, it will be shut down. And here are some of the paving projects I talked about. There's a substantial amount of paving projects that took place, and these paving projects will be done using continuing contracts that are based in maintenance that will save that markup from using a general contractor, what we refer to as a construction manager. All those will be done as internal maintenance projects, not with maintenance-based staff, but maintenance-based contracts. So those are cost savings there. So I think that's the end of it. I know we've covered a lot, but I'd be happy to answer any questions from anyone before I
Just have a few questions, because we still have Mrs. Gibbons.
You mentioned, because we talked about custodial, who handles custodial?
So the custodial staff is managed at the school level. So the
Yes.
principals and the administrative staff, they handle the building supervisor, the building, the head custodian, and the custodians, if there are any site workers that manage their day-to-day. However, we do have a checklist of what they're responsible for to help guide them in that direction. You know, your drain lines, your outside, here's what we would expect from you to make sure that it's taken care of. If you have any questions, changing belts, or whatever, we will supply the help to you. But they have a set goals that we expect them to meet, however, they're not managed by us.
So I hear a lot of anecdotal complaints about cleanliness in the schools, and that, maybe that reporting thing would be applicable to that, but
You're looking at me.
well, because you're gonna be bringing this forward, you
I
know,
know,
you're gonna say,
I
you know, we should have people being able to have some hotline to report, you know, the conditions in the schools. And, I don't know, I hear a lot of issues about, and it's surprising to me that it's handled at the school level, because they ought to be able to take care of it, but for some reason they're not.
I just wanna say, I think it's a good idea, I also think that it's really gotta be well thought out.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is slippery.
Oh, it sure is. That's why I said they find the smoking, everyone thinks they got the smoking gun, but it's, let's report this and try to get something fixed. It's not about reporting it, it's about, can we fix this before, you know, it turns into something a lot more. Kid getting hurt.
So,
I always had a problem with portables, I still do. I've seen where, you know, they extend way past their lifespan, and I've personally witnessed with my own 2 eyes kids getting hurt from them. So I got a problem with those. But if a kid's reporting something, maybe if there's enough reports, and someone's hand's gonna get forced over there quickly.
And maybe, you know, if it is something that is accepted, the caveat would be a report that ends up as a viable situation.
Yeah.
Not just every little thing, but it's something that
The database.
that if
That you
it
can
was
start to see,
accepted,
yeah.
that you guys would have to.
Yes, ma'am. So to give everyone an idea of the magnitude of what we're talking about, so on average, we receive 21,000 to 23,000 work orders a year. That's a lot of work orders. So each and every work order is vetted. Yeah, so each and every work order is vetted for, hey, for accuracy, for, is this a duplicate? We reach out to the schools and we send technicians there, or we send a contractor to the school. So that gives you an idea of how big it is. It's a huge engine that moves forward. And to answer your question a little deeper about the cleanliness of the schools, if a school has an issue, say, listen, our staff is not adequately trained. We have two people on site. They're not the typical zone manager like we talk about zone managers. They're a custodial zone manager where they go and they have a training program that's constantly evolving. Tammy Rodriguez Garcia heads it up, where they're constantly being trained and retrained. So schools where they're notified when we're having these trainings on here's how you clean, here's how you clean this product, here's how you properly execute this. We constantly have that training going on, and it's not uncommon for a school to reach out to us, hey, listen, we've received some complaints from our staff that the school's not clean as it should be. We'll perform a walkthrough with those zone managers, we'll identify those issues, and we'll get them the proper training they need at a higher level, and the school will be responsible for making sure that that's happening and being maintained.
So you do have some level of responsibility.
Yeah, 2 employees to make sure, at a higher level, to make sure that those 2 employees, their primary focus is, are we getting the product that we need? Are the schools using the product that they're allowed to use? Are they not bringing in chemicals that don't blend?
Who monitors and evaluates the employee performance of the custodians in each school?
They're the administrative staff at each school.
Do they perform checks against their list of requirements?
I would assume, I can't really sponsor, I've never sat down a custodial review. Many years ago, we ranked them, as a group, we ranked them, but about maybe 8 to 10 years ago, that fell off. However, schools do reach out to us personally and say, listen, what does your work order look like? Are they solid work orders? Are they justifiable? And we, this is a big district, but at the same time, it's a small district. You've been here long enough, you develop relationships with the principals and administrative staff. So, we can speak candidly with the majority of them. But a high school that has three custodians, cleanliness is an issue. I totally get it, but it goes back to, it's hard, so they have to stand on top of me. It's a scheduling issue. It's a rotation, do they get vacuum every day? Do they get vacuum every other day? I had this conversation with a couple, older building supervisors that are leaving the district, and, we had this exact conversation.
But in general, there are the principal's responsibility, and they should be following up and monitoring their work as well.
Follow through.
So I just had one more question. So what, just one thing maybe, what can this group do for you guys? What can we do? What is your, I know there's so many staffing and how you prioritize things and money, but what's something?
Honestly and truly, this is, I tell people this all the time, this is the easiest job I've ever had. I came from an industry where I had to identify a problem, go to you and sell you a solution to your problem, say, listen, this widget's broken, it needs to be replaced, is it in your budget to take care of that? If it's a justifiable need, not a want, and it's not in our budget, we simply go to Kelly's group, and if they agree with us, which if it's important, they will, then we're given the funds to complete that. It's difficult because it's getting to everywhere, the 20,000 work orders a year, it's definitely difficult, it's tasking, it weighs on your soul, but they give me everything I need to be successful in our group and our employees. Obviously you want your employees to make more money, we want all these things, but as far as us going without because something's being withheld, that doesn't happen. That group is an amazing group, and they have a monumental, if you look at the dollar value, we're such a small portion of that monumental total she told you, we're in the billions, we're a small piece of that, but when we call, we're the only important thing they got going on, and they do that to everyone. I have no issues with getting my job done, and I can't say that if I got this, I could do it better. Obviously we need more people, we have a limited amount of employees, but that's a conversation I have with another group. But we're getting it done, and we're on task to get these projects completed. And things are going very, very well right now.
If I could answer that question, I'd say, help us tell our story. Help us, these projects that we're getting done, and when it comes time for the half-cent sales tax to come around, help tell the story of, the improvements that are being made, by these funds that are being provided and, with the hope of, continuing in the future. But, our maintenance staff is, you can tell by these numbers, you can tell by the number of facilities and, that we have that, they are working hard and, to keep them running. And, we just kind of need that continuous support, through funds. And I think telling the story is kind of the best way, and, those signs that, depict and kind of show what's going on, and, the other stories, they all help, to kind of, paint that picture of how the maintenance dollars are getting used effectively.
Thank you. That's awesome.
How do we
That was
rank,
great.
how do we rank staff-wise, position-wise, to schools comparable to our size?
I'm not following you.
That's not theirs. They wouldn't be on staffing.
The number of maintenance people.
Yeah.
compared
As compared to other groups.
No, but that came up today when we started digging these numbers. My counterpart in maintenance and I, were reached out to, a couple different districts. So we're reaching out to Sarasota, which if you didn't know is the greenest county in the state. So we reached out to them and I have some.
Highest tax base.
Yeah.
They have a high tax base as well.
A lot of money or green,
Right,
Yeah.
which number are we talking about?
So and then Dade County, which is my background, I have some contacts in Dade County, we're reaching out to Dade County, where Dade County does a lot of different things differently, so we're reaching out to them to see, how they rank their employees, how many employees they have per school as far as maintenance is concerned. And they actually have some interesting stuff that I found out today, they do a lot of their own testing, prior to bringing anything into their district, they do a lot of their own testing and testing facilities, like in the aircraft industry, they'll test these components, via a testing lab or internally, so that they have that capability. I did not know that. So we're trying to reach out to the district, which is the first time that's happened at the maintenance level, to try to grow and understand how the rest of the state works, so that way we can bring you guys valid information. So, hey, listen, we are understaffed or overstaffed, and here's that data to prove that.
In the perfect world, as we grow with schools, staffing would grow too, but unfortunately, we're so limited in our resources that doesn't happen anywhere. So, as maintenance and everywhere, everybody just keeps taking more on as we keep growing. I mean, our district is one of the fastest growing school districts, and we're having a hard time keeping up.
But, I think it'd be important too to look at keep track of what our cost is having our own employees compared to what the cost would be to outsource it.
Absolutely, and that's come up with Ms. Gittens and the board. Hey, when do you outsource? What's your matrix on that? How do you outsource? And we're at the point where, we have 158 employees. We had 158 employees and we have 40 facilities.
Right.
So,
It's 60,000 kids.
yeah, so that's where I'm at. So now we have 96 schools and completely, we have 110, almost 20 ancillary buildings. So, we're putting fires on as fast as we can. But as we grow and we're able to take these tax dollars and we're able to complete these projects through the utilization of contracted services, it gives us that time to sit back with, our executive director, which is Mr. Ross, which has an office in our building, and sit back and say, hey, he can ask these key questions, hey, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. Here's this, why is that? And that's gonna give us the ability to say, listen, here's the matrix on what we do and why we do it. But right now, we've been running gangbusters, making sure everything gets done within the budget that we have allocated, utilizing our resources for the repair work and the maintenance and the PM work. We have a pretty extensive preventative maintenance program.
But do you count for HVAC maintenance specifically, you keep track of all the cost of maintenance for HVAC and parts and things?
Yeah.
So you can compare that to an outsourced contract?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we're comparing our time to industry TRGs, which are time requirement guides.
Right.
And we're also applying that technology. We're working on now getting into some software where we can say, okay, we can utilize this labor we have here and this facet over here to prevent lost time, so it can be ran like any other shop in the country.
I think Osceola is somewhat comparable to Lee.
Yes, ma'am.
You may want to look at
That's a
Osceola.
good idea, yes, ma'am. Put that in my phone.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you guys for
Can I
your
ask one
time.
more?
We have to move on to.
Oh, you got that still?
Yeah, we
Okay,
still have,
yeah.
to do
I'll be quick.
report.
The only question was quick, do we have reserves that we budget for maintenance of parking lots and things?
We keep reserves.
But
in
do
the
you,
budget
you do it like an HOA or like a condominium HOA, where you reserve money every year, like a tenth of the cost of repaving the parking lot, you know, tenth of that every year is a reserve item, so when you get to the end, the money's in a pot to pay for that?
So what maintenance turns into us when we go and look at our thing is a 5-year plan, and so they look out 5 and even 10 years out and on out, but you know, the further out you get, it's basically a crapshoot, but, and they look at what they think the needs are gonna be within that time frame, and so when we build our plan, we build it out that way, assuming these things will be coming up, and then we adjust as, like, if we come up and they say, okay, well, you know, this one's not gonna be done, this one is, we make those adjustments as we build the budgets closer to each of the years.
I mean, as I was thinking, I was curious if the reserving money would be eligible to use the sales tax money to fund a reserve fund.
I don't think we were able to from what we
That
got.
sales tax was-
I don't think that would go over well with people.
I don't know.
Just holding money
Yeah.
for.
Like if you said, well, you know, we're gonna have
Yeah,
to
we're
replace,
gonna-
we're gonna replace a chiller in 20 years if we quit.
I understand what you're saying,
Can that be?
Yeah.
you know, saving for certain repairs. Part of the issue with that is funding for a school district is so political. Just to
I
say
think
the
everything about a
least.
school district became political lately.
Yes.
Yeah, because, you know, legislation says how much we get every year.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to, it's hard. Okay,
Okay,
ready for me to
thanks.
go?
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, gentlemen.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Happy holidays.
Well,
All right, you too.
And Mr. Ross is it's a new role for him, executive director in, operations. So he previously was our procurement director and left us for a little while, and then, just came back as our executive director for operations,
And
so.
you're in charge, operations means which department?
Construction, maintenance, and planning.
Good. I like the way you're
Yeah.
rolling off your tongue these days.
Procurement was tough enough, but.
I know, all right.
Wasn't tough
Glad
enough,
to have
wanted
you
more.
back.
I wanted more, yeah,
Wanted
one more.
Yeah.
Great to have you
All
back.
right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you all very much.
Yes, good job.
Okay, I'm going to go quickly. My main thing to say to you guys is to, take a look at board docs. We finally got on board docs. An easy way to get to it is on the leeschools.net under leadership, and then, it drops down and you can get to, board docs or minutes and all that. It's the easiest.
But you still have to dig it out of the individual meeting minutes, so that's.
Well, if, I believe like the most current meetings will be up there. There's a way, and I'll show you at another
Okay.
meeting, I'll show you how to do that if you're looking for something specific. Once you go on board docs, you can go into the search field once you get it and put in finance, and everything, every meeting that had finance will show up by date. So that way, if you're looking for something, it makes it easy.
One of the things we brought up to Kelly before you got here is the expenditures that show up in the board docs do not necessarily match the budget.
And that
And
was,
so that's really difficult for us to do analysis because you can't, the budget says this on these 10 items and there's 15 over here in expenditures, or it's the other way around. And
I brought that up at one of the meetings, I don't know if you wanna go back, a couple meetings ago, when they were doing a report. And my concern is that this report wasn't matching this report. Not saying that anything
no,
nefarious was going on, but the way this was reported looked like a different number than the way this was. And one of my concerns was have some tax page that shows, you know, your taxes at work. And I was looking at a specific school and a project they were doing, and then I went to that page, the taxes at work, and it didn't have the same thing. So it's just how, marketing, again, it's how it's presented. And to somebody who doesn't know, it's like, well, why is this number different from this number? And that's all, it's just, you know, the way, the perception. So I really highly suggest, even before our meetings, that you go on the board docs and look at even the monthly budget report or the capital reports. We're always briefed on those. And what I like to do is I'll print it out and look at the one from the last month and then look at this one and kind of compare, you know, what the differences are. So that was a big discussion when we had the capital and all of that. One of the things was, of course, the halting of the quadruple A school project. So there's a lot of discussion about, now that we're not doing this, what are we going to do? If that was a part of the 5-year plan, how are we readjusting that 5-year plan? So that's something I'm continuing to ask. And I just feel like if you, I think I explained it, like if you own a house and you're paying a mortgage of $1,500 and somebody says, I'm gonna pay your mortgage off, so all of a sudden you have $1,500, do you not kind of redo your budget and see what's going on? So we're getting answers. I don't know if you wanna address that at all, or I'm not putting you on the spot.
So are you asking about what we're gonna do with the funding that was set aside for
For
quadruple A?
quadruple A.
Well, right now, we're assuming since the cost of construction is going so high that money will actually have to be used in some of our other areas to do that. But we're re-looking at all of the stuff that, you know, has to be done, and they're going out and getting the pricing on, you know, the new construction and things to see where we are.
Because one of the things that was stated at the meeting was that money would be diffused over the other projects in the 5-year plan because the costs were going up. Which to me is an issue, because then you're still saying projects that need to happen may not happen, because instead of taking that amount and using it for a different school, it's just being spread over projects that you already have. And I don't know, it's confusing to me, but John, I see you.
Well, I came out of an industry where you spend a lot of money. Reality is sometimes, projects are in an overrun status and you do have to spend the money to complete it. So there is a rearranging of the deck chairs to accomplish it. It's unfortunate a lot of times that you are there, that something maybe falls off the sled in order to make, the rest of the process work.
Yeah.
Does the district have a debt ceiling?
Not really.
We
They have
have,
different mechanisms in place to be able to borrow money or,
Well, right
To be able
now,
to
we're
tax the
at
public.
500 million in debt.
but
So-
that's what they have since sales tax was originally.
Okay,
put in
but
place to
Servicing is
address.
in the ceiling,
Yeah.
right? You can only spend 75% of the,
yes.
so that's kind of an implicit cap on the total
So
debt.
Glenn, that was my point, is
Servicing
if we
debt,
don't spread the money, then we're gonna have to borrow more money and we could hit the limit. Because of the costs are going up.
I hear
Potentially.
you, but my point would be, okay, if it was not stopped and we went ahead and spent
Yeah,
$100 million
right.
to build a school,
Right.
We gotta borrow
how
money.
are,
Yeah,
how
we still
are
gotta
we
borrow
going
money. Yeah.
to do that? And then where is the need? That's my need.
So my response to you on the first part with, if we had moved forward with quadruple A, if it still need, we still had the need and we went forward with it, in order to cover the increased costs for the construction for quadruple A and the other schools that we're seeing, some other things that are currently on the 5-year plan would have to come off.
Yeah.
Right, and in any way you look at it, to me, it requires let's sit down, in a smoke-filled room and pull apart the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And put the pieces back together
Yeah.
again.
And that's what we're going to have to do. And so Scott is trying to, Mr. Rickenbacker, our construction person, is going out trying to get updated numbers on all of the other construction projects to see where we think we might be. Because I can't build a plan until I know what the numbers are going to be, otherwise I just have what I have. So he's going back out to the architects and to the different areas to try and get updated numbers for the other ones so that we can see where we think we might be, what we need to shift. Can we add projects if we do this? Can we add projects here? Can we do this type of a thing?
It is an unprecedented time from a supply standpoint with costs.
No, and I
It'll shake out eventually,
It-
but
it
it's
will.
I
gonna
totally
go.
understand that, which is why I continue, you hear me say all the time about prioritizing resources.
Absolutely.
As resources shrink,
Dwindle, yeah.
then we need to sit down and prioritize. And I think part of that comes from when I worked in corporate for 12 years. If certain things happened, if we lost something over here, we lost a person or whatever at a certain level, it was a 2-day meeting to sit there and tear everything apart and not just to continue on, okay, we lost this, so we just continue on and we'll fix it later. It was a stop and tear it all apart and look at what pieces do we have now and what do we do. So anyway, that's kind of stuck in my head. The other thing I want to mention, in our last meeting, there was the student enrollment numbers were on board docs, so you may want to look at that. Anytime you see, in my opinion, anything with student enrollment, that's the crux of why we're here. We can't do anything, they can't do, no one can do anything if we don't know how many students there are going to be and where they're going to be. That's like our ground floor. So as finance and looking at the numbers, I think that's kind of critical for us to make sure that we look at and see if we have questions or anything with that. There was also a small business enterprise project that was on the board docs as well. Very, I think for some of the comments you were talking about, very critical to finance. And basically it's maximizing equitable opportunities and disparities between women and minorities, and making sure we're spreading the wealth, so to speak.
Contractual standpoint, yeah.
Yes, so that is a very good and a very important project you may want to look at on board docs as well.
We had the briefing,
Yes.
Right.
so we saw it.
Right, that's right, you
Yeah,
guys saw that.
Yeah, we
first.
saw it.
So that's getting across the finish
Sure.
line now, and I think we're in the final stages of that, which is a very, very good thing. I have all the things down that you guys talked about to take back with the QR code, all that type of thing, the partnerships, what else? Important to you guys is the audit committee. We finally, have the audit advisory board. We have another meeting tomorrow. And one of the main things that we were focused on is the fact that we have been, for the last year, been out of compliance by not having an internal auditor. The district has an internal auditor that was just hired, right? Didn't we just hire
That's for, it's
It's
the
for-
internal audit director for the, mainly doing the school's internal funds.
that's doing, well, like when they collect money and all this. But an actual internal auditor, we should have 3 employees: the superintendent, the board attorney, and the internal auditor. And we have not had that one for quite a while. So one of the things that the audit committee came up with in our first meeting was, because it's so critical, to get back in touch with RSM, who was our internal auditor, and see if we might be able to at least broker a deal with them for a 6-month term, because they were here, because they can hit the ground running while we still look for, or decide what we're really gonna do.
Because they miss an awful lot. I mean, we've discussed their audits here, and there was just an obscene amount of things that were missed, an obscene amount of problems that were addressed. We made motions and brought them forth to the board over and over again of major problems with them, and the board keeps doing business with the same person, the same group, which makes no sense to us.
And as someone who was in public accounting, the turnover rate is so high that the people that were working with us directly, may not even be in
There's no
place.
knowledge to bring, yeah.
So I would be
Well,
looking for,
the point
Correct.
is right now, and I get you and I hear you, and I'm not advocating that we have to get them back. What I am advocating for and what keeps me up at night is that we've been over a year out of compliance.
Do you have to
That
be in
if we-
compliance? What happens if you're not in compliance?
Well,
Get an audit finding.
you get quite a bit of finding.
State,
Yeah.
OAG?
This was a state mandated, position that we had to do. So I don't know how that's gonna turn out. But if there were things that were not finished, and I know I've heard some of the issues that came with them or whatever, but on the other hand of it, I don't know if not having an audit committee or having someone work directly with them, if they really heard or understood what some of the issues were.
You have the
So,
right people, you have a few good people on the
Yeah,
audit
that-
committee, from what I've seen.
no, it's a very, very
And I think that's
good.
gonna be the saving grace, because I know one of the people came from this committee
No,
over
and-
there, and that's, at least I know moving forward, when we see it next year, or the next time they bring forth an audit, the
It will
odds are
be-
much
it
higher
will
that
be
that's going to
different.
be addressed.
But one of the things that they had asked for, and remember, they left us, we didn't fire them.
Right.
But one of the things they had asked for was to be able to work with the audit committee, because there was not anyone within the structure that was really working with them and saying, we need to do this or we need to do that. And so, it's,
Is the audit committee made up of just lay people, or is it?
but they're I'm the liaison to it, and
Okay.
when I say high-level people, we got some really high-level people.
Meaning they understand audits, they understand the way they work. They understand-
extremely.
Former auditors on
No,
that.
Gotcha.
this
Gotcha.
isn't
Okay.
your parents from Poughkeepsie, no.
That's what I was wondering, if it's just lay people, or
where
if
can
we
we
had.
see that list? of the
There
members?
was, and this is the thing that I keep asking about, the first meeting was video, and it should be out there, and I've asked why it's not. There was discussion about not videotaping their meetings because of what they're discussing, and I wanted to ask you guys what you felt about that.
We didn't believe our meetings should be taped, because we had people showing up at our meetings with phones in our faces, trying to video record us at one point.
Right,
And we
okay.
ended up having the police at a few of our meetings over. Personally, if they wanna record the audio, great. If someone has a question or they wanna see it, show up. But
That, and
recording
we
our
said
meetings, we're
that
not
as
elected
well.
officials like you are.
It's a little bit tricky with sunshine and all that good stuff.
But the state's
And I
attorney's
get it.
office already ruled on this, that committees such as this did not need to be recorded. That elected officials needed to be recorded for the sunshine. While we still have to adhere to sunshine, we weren't required to be recorded. That was something that the
It's-
board decided, well, certain members of the board decided for whatever
Right.
reason.
Which
Well,
we
it's
actually
been-
asked them to reconsider and never got an answer.
Yeah.
It's
Multiple
being
times.
looked at, it's
Yeah.
being looked at with the audit committee, and the thing is, when we meet tomorrow, we're talking about at least getting, an auditor in place for at least 6 months.
So that's, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
So that's the point, like, first of all, I'm with Daryl, RSM was very poor.
Yeah.
And Chelsea's point is extremely good, that they probably don't have the same people anyway to work on it. So, they do, okay, because the only reason to hire them for 6 months is because it's totally stopgap, that you gotta get in compliance right away. Otherwise, wouldn't you go out and just hire somebody else for a year at least and let them have
Well,
a year's worth
and
of
we
project?
would,
you
but
know.
two things. One, they were in the process of doing certain things, and, perhaps, did we coach them? Did we actually,
So
someone
we let
sit
them
down
down.
that had the caliber
Oh,
to
we let 'em know.
understand, to explain? And that's what I'm saying, and they kept saying, if they had the audit committee of people that really understood, then it could be,
You know,
so it's kind of
part of an audit too is having an outside person come in with a totally outside view. And would it be valuable to have a brand new set of eyes on it from a
it
different
would,
company?
but the other thing is, finding somebody
Well, that's,
and.
yeah, sure.
Can you
Lee
contract it
County
out?
School District,
I'd rather Billy
That's
Bob's
our
auditor or
sin,
somebody new,
Outside.
you know? I mean, that's just my
Yeah,
thought.
so
There was
we're
really
different
that
outside
many
firm.
problems.
Right, what I'm saying.
I'm not trying to cause a problem. There was
You didn't
just
see
that
the
many
importance
problems
for-
brought up
You look at
repeatedly
England,
by like
hell, it's
6
like
people
nothing,
in this
right?
city.
I
And
did
not-
see a
Not
couple
to
of
drill
them.
that point, I just
No.
wanted to, provide insight is all. The principal or the partner on the engagement remaining in place is a lot different than the staff or the managers that are conducting the audit. I worked in audit. And so those positions that you don't see are the ones that have the bulk of the knowledge and are performing the work.
And that's what this meeting tomorrow, trust me, you guys think you're hard, this audit committee, they drill down, and they know what they're talking about. So we've got years of experience, so they're going to do the drilling tomorrow to find out, it's not, nothing is a done deal. But we also know that it's going to take, hiring a pen maker these days takes a long time. So we know that that's going to be an issue as well.
That might be a year before you find somebody in.
That's what I'm saying,
You know,
that's what I mean. So it may come down to, do we work with whom we have and make changes? And make sure they understand those changes, and maybe it means you guys doing a document that shows, oh my gosh, it's really, a document or something of the specific things. And I don't know that you did that because I wasn't involved with it before. So maybe that would be what you would do, and submit that, I can submit that to the audit committee to say, these are some of the things the finance committee saw.
You mean deficiencies in the way they did it?
Sort of, yeah, yes.
If
So
I'm
what you
correct,
got?
Mr. Cohen had produced multiple documents from
Well,
the,
he's on that committee,
I
so
know
I
he is.
kind of think.
I know he is, that's why I said, they're in the right direction. I don't have to say too much, but I know that they're in the right direction.
Well, when he walked into the first meeting and his binder was this big, you kind of figured he was gone.
Well, he was producing full documents.
Oh, no, he
Coming to
did.
our board, to our committee meetings and going, here's all the problems that I found. And I'm
And
just sitting there
he's
going,
on,
wow.
in fact, he's the chair.
I know he is. I
So,
know.
I don't think you have to wait. Anyway, I wanted to mention the audit committee.
That's what I was smiling about.
What questions about anything do you guys have of me?
I just have one thing to say about, to you.
Uh-oh.
On Hampton sales tax, I did email you about this. Thank you for voting against it, because this group,
What was that?
we fought very hard for the half-cent sales tax to be able to go to pay off the debt. And then I saw the charter schools came in at the last chair meeting when we came forward, and that money, we would have lost the half-cent sales tax. I do not believe that, according to what I read in the legislation, and this is what both of my degrees are in college, we would have lost the half-cent sales tax if you gave the charter schools even a share of it. You can give away the whole regular budget legally, but if you would have given any penny from that half-cent sales tax, they could have the public could go in and take all that money.
Well, my understanding and my lay terms of it, you have a referendum, you write it, you say to the public, this is what we want you to vote on. This is what we will do if you decide you vote on it, okay? And I go into the booth and I go, okay, I can deal with this, I can deal with this, but I'll go ahead and vote for it. And then, 2 years down the road, you say, well, we're gonna change this one. I don't
These are
think.
called lawsuits.
Yeah.
That's why I'm
Trust
happy
me,
that
we
you
have
chose
enough
it.
of those, okay? So I just, that was what I was stuck on, whether they should get some or not.
They had an opportunity to back then. From
And
what I
that's-
know, they were actually asked to join us on that,
Yes,
and they said no.
yes.
Now, given my history, full disclosure, I was a member of the charter school board in the city of Cape Coral at one point.
Right,
And I know exactly where every one of their pennies are coming from. In this case, when they turned that down, we could not give them that money legally.
yeah.
We could have given them other money if you chose. Like I said, you could
But
give
that
away
was
the
just
regular
not
school
going
budget, but that one thing, I felt very
I
strongly
just
about
thought
it.
the legality, and me personally, I couldn't.
Yeah.
That's not what we told the public.
And that's why I'm saying thank you. I think you did a great job on that.
Thank
board.
you.
Oh, I got a kudos.
That really mattered.
You were
I will live on that for the next 6
Well, I
months.
sent you an email
Yes, sir.
about it. I was upset about that when I listened, because I sat there for about 2.5 hours waiting to say something after I gave the board,
Well,
my
they were
chair
pretty
report.
adamant in there, yeah.
And I wanted to say something, and my daughter was calling me, she needed me right away, and I'm like, what time? So I sent a message right away, I sent you a message like, no, this is how I feel, this is what the legality is. Talk to the attorney, and
That's
it ended up working out, this
That's
is
what
what we
it is.
fought for.
We gotta follow the law, no
Yes.
lawsuits, that's our theme for the next year. Yes, correct,
I
Chelsea.
just, I know we're approaching the end, but I just wanted to bring up future discussion topics. I think
Yes.
we have a few that we've got unaddressed, but one, I don't know if this is on, in the plans, but I was curious as to, with, recent inflation, they're discussing, there's labor problems, especially with increasing enrollment and staffing issues, if there are any, and what is the financial impact of that? The bargaining agreements are currently in place, so I know that a lot of that is going to be determined at that level, but what can we do or look at to ensure that the number one goal of meeting the needs of the children, increasing enrollment, and ensuring that we've got adequate staffing in place and incentives to attract people?
Gwen Gittens, what I would say to you is, kind of back to what Robert was saying, the marketing. We have to be able to, and what you guys can do, because you're knowledgeable about all of this, is to be able to explain to people, how would you say, like, in a 5-minute up here, but, a level. The average reading level in the United States is 6th to 7th grade, the United States. So if we are a 60-40 minority district, chances are, when we put something out at a grade 13 level, it's very difficult and people don't understand. So when you don't understand, then you get upset about something. The bus drivers were getting upset, they didn't understand. There's 2 buckets of money to give them right now. One is the bargaining for their regular salary, tell me if I'm wrong, and the other is the ESSER funds, okay? So that's 2 separate things. I mean, they're going to get the ESSER funds, they did today. They got $1,000. And the way the letter went out to all the employees said on the 15th, everyone will get $1,000 except for those that already got it. Well, that just started World War V. Because I'm like,
No good deed.
well, wait a minute, I didn't get it, but who did and what? All we needed to say was, 6 months or so ago, the governor gave $1,000 to teachers and administrators from state funds. Everyone who did not get that previously will get it on the 15th.
That's right, messaging.
Tax, after taxes, you will get $1,000. Case closed. So what you can take out to people is simplifying our message. Yes, we need teachers, we need staff, we need people. There are benefits to it. There are extra funds like the ESSER funds that you will get. So when you read something that we put out, decipher it and do your 5-minute, we used to call it elevator speech. Okay, you got a 5-minute elevator speech to say, what are the needs? We have over 90,000 students. Our enrollment continues to grow. We have a $1.9 billion budget. We have right now for the next 7 years, an extra tax fund to help us get this done. So we are trying to take care of the things that we have that need maintenance and trying to build the things that we don't have. So be involved.
Let's watch the acronyms though, I didn't know what ESSER was till last week. And honest to God, yeah.
See, and that's what I mean.
And I figure, retirees, old parts like me, 99% of us don't know what that is.
Don't understand. That's
So-
why I do a Facebook thing on Thursdays, and I spent half of it last week just talking about what it means.
Yeah.
And it's basically for the fact of students that may have fallen behind because of COVID. Those funds were out there, so. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's okay. I was gonna say, just to Chelsea's point though, I think like specific, I think that's really good, we need to keep doing everything you're talking about, but like specific topic areas that we can look at, because these are real problems, and they do need help solving them. I mean, staffing is a real issue.
HR.
How, yeah, I mean, so that's where I was going, is that getting, you know, a Bonnie in here, getting someone like that in here, or Dr. Young, am I remembering that right?
Mr. Dodick is the head, or right now is the executive director of
He would
Human
be good.
Resources, so
Okay.
he was,
But
he was
talking
going to
about,
come
you know,
in.
not to understand necessarily the compensation side, that is just such a quagmire, but even more so that maybe the benefits side. And understanding some of the levers that are there, and this is coming from a place for me, I'm healthcare my whole career, well, except for my little jaunt at DOT, in Illinois, but I really looking at, you know, what are those benefit expenses, what are our big, Blues doing for us, what are our Aetnas doing for us, I can't even remember who the.
And you know what, that is a major
That
issue.
major
to
issue.
staff.
What are we doing around stop loss insurance? How are
Yes.
we handling big cases? I mean, these are multi-million-dollar decisions that I think would be good for this group to be educated on, understanding how we're doing things going forward, because this is a very innovative area in our country, particularly around that space in the healthcare. So I that's a topic I would bring up for a future consideration to understand.
I
That's
can
what
tell you
we're
now, we
fighting
use a
for, is to
lot.
get healthcare in, because Ken and I have gone back and forth for 6 years.
Well, we
that
had
what
Pruitt
we're
in
saying-
here a bunch of times and a bunch of
And we're
times.
We've gone-
we're
we've gone
losing a
over
lot
so
of
much that she
people.
left.
This is where you
Because
save
they
the
have to
people
pay,
is
they
benefits.
have to pay too much for insurance.
For the kids.
I get calls at least 2 or 3 a week about, you know, I
That's
can't,
my last
you
big
give
one.
me 2%, but then I have to.
And I'm
Okay.
talking, and I think I am talking at that basic level, but more innovative types of conversations about all those big dollars surrounding core things like how much comes out of your paycheck, how
Oh,
much we're paying.
definitely.
Those to me are those, I mean,
And you would get the attention of all
you know,
the
those are
staff.
big dollars that are out
Yes.
there.
They
Full
talk about
disclosure,
benefits.
I talked to Bonnie for a number of years about, when I was at Lee, about partnering on some different things. Never came to fruition for various reasons, but there's still the right topics to discuss. There's still opportunities there, you know, for some
So
cost
maybe
savings.
if everyone has some idea of a topic or whatever, just send an email with 1 or 2 things that you think, and it may shift out that we're all on the same page, go figure.
Wasn't that already
We
on there?
had that first meeting, we had a discussion on it, and one of the biggest things, and it's come up, like I said, Ken and I, for the last 6 years, have discussed the same thing, is the benefits. We keep asking for them. They couldn't come this month. I'm requesting again that we get benefits for January, and I'm also this time requesting the superintendent be available. Dr. Atkins, I had actually spoken to him when he was here. I was trying to get him to attend that meeting.
To discuss the
When
same.
benefits came in, because
Well, we
everyone,
put a we put a proposal on, we said we wanted to
Every
have an
year.
RFP put out.
every year we ask for an RFP, because we have people that show
Not
up at
just
the meeting
administratively,
that sell
but
insurance and
creative
say,
ideas.
I'll kill the price right this second, I'll beat the price, I'll beat what you guys are spending, I'll save you millions. And every year, and then you look online, and if, I don't know if you follow the post, probably don't, all over social media, the employees specifically talk about
About,
the benefits. Why are you leaving? Oh, yeah, I'd like more money, but the benefits are killing me. But the people negotiating the benefits aren't the young mother that has 3 children that's a school teacher. They're the ones about to retire, so now the young mother has to leave. You lost the young mother, and you got the woman the older one that retired.
There is, I would just say, there is a lot of complexity that goes around, and this is, again, coming out of the
refuse us.
industry. There's a ton of complexity that goes around these decisions, which you guys are aware, and Bonnie is wonderful, and she knows this stuff backwards and forwards. I think she'd be a great resource. You know, to get
maybe
some questions
too,
answered.
a lot of this falls on the union, so
That's right.
maybe we should have them.
Well, I think it'd be good to read the
Well,
union contracts.
The answer we got was that the union wants to have more money and not pay us and more for the benefits, so
Okay,
that
we're
was the
being
answer.
taped and I'm
Short,
not gonna
the short
talk.
answer.
But
I just like an
yes,
education. about
yeah,
what
and I
it's
think the
actually-
combination
process
with the
was.
superintendent
Yeah.
I want
and
people here
Bonnie
that can do
and
something.
union and talking about what they can talk about, to just explain at this level, not this level, what's going on.
I'd say invite the whole board, I know they can't all talk, only you would be able to talk because the sunshine, but at least then people would hear
Do you
what we're
want me to
saying.
get killed? Do you want me to be in a room with all the board members and I'm the only one that can talk?
No,
So
they-
if you can send to me, because when I
So
have
I'll be
people come
texting
in,
you.
I try to give them, like a heads up on what types of things that you are looking for based on discussion. So for the insurance piece, because you said some very specific things, so if you can just send me, you don't have to send it to the whole group.
Yeah.
Just send to me those things.
As long as Bonnie doesn't beat me up, I will.
I won't tell Bonnie who they came from, I'll just say, these are the.
She will, she'll remember me,
So, yeah, but
I'll
that's
be a
how.
good relationship.
And you guys, I just wanna say thank you all for taking your time, thank you for your experience, your expertise, your involvement, and your desire to make us as good as we can be and better than that, so. Happy holidays to everyone.
And make a motion to adjourn,
Second.
Second.
thank you.
You all
All in favor?
Aye.
Happy holidays.
See you next
Enjoy
year.
it.
guys.
Enjoy your time.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Alright, thank you.
See you guys, bye-bye.
Merry Christmas to you too, how are you?
I just want you to know it wasn't all me today.
Yes.
Well, that's the
I
thing.
had my fair share.
It
wasn't all
Give
me.
everyone a shot and everyone.
Oh, no.
You gotta remember, I know who's gonna talk the most, and I'm jumping around and I come back.
Well, but no, we had a lot of people jumping in.
I was waiting.
Your piece out there.
I waited all day for Ken. I was waiting for him nonstop, like, okay. So I got him. And then out of nowhere, he started speaking up at the end.
A
I
lot
was
of
trying
people
to-
are getting back into the holiday spirit because of COVID before.
He's great, every time I have a problem, he's the one right with the other side against me.
Yes,
But he's so good at it.
we need to fix that, thank you.
That's
Merry
right.
Christmas.